Alright, y'all, I am back. That took a little longer than I thought it would. Apparently. So, Twitch is more so on cue than my YouTube. I don't know why that is. But we'll find out. Before I continue, that's what I'll be doing. Hold on. We stopped at 133.43. So, what it looks like to me, we're making some pretty decent time. If I stop pausing, that'd be great. Okay, so here's the thing. I'll finish this out. I'll work through it, and play around with some settings and see where that takes me from there. So, moving on forward.
One line. Like I like this function, but we learned some things in the past. We saw some arrow functions, and we know how to do ternaries exactly. So let's see if we can combine our arrow functions and ternary. I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to say const heads or tails, and I'm going to set it equal to, are we taking in anything? Are we taking in anything? Nah.
I don't know why I did that.
So we can go ahead and then do,
I gotta be more careful.
let's go ahead and do what's our math dot random, right? Math dot random less than 0.5, right? Less than 0.5. And we're gonna say if it is less than 0.5, we return heads, and if it's greater than 0.5, we return tails.
I do understand this.
Let's see if this works.
Oh,
Let's see if this works.
Wait a second.
Let's see if we still get a result. Let's come back.
Ew, go back.
Before we move on, let's go ahead and take a look at this right here. How could I do this maybe like all on like one line? Like I like this function, but we learned some things in the past. We saw some arrow functions, and we know how to do ternaries exactly. So let's see if we can combine our arrow functions and ternary. I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to say const heads or tails, and I'm going to set it equal to, are we taking in anything? Are we taking in anything? Nah. So we can go ahead and then do, let's go ahead and do, what's our math dot random, right? Math dot random less than 0.5, right? Less than 0.5.
Less than 0.5.
And we're going to say if it is less than 0.5, we return heads. And if it's greater than 0.5, we return tails. Let's see if this works. Let's see if this works. Let's see if we still get a result. Let's come back. Let's refresh. Boom, boom. All right, still working. We got the tails. All right, let's talk about this. So for me, this is all in one line, which is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
We got not tails again. It's rigged. So that's the thing. This is the beauty. This is high stakes. This would be like, I feel like we need to do this. I feel like we need to do a day where we just risk channel points. This won't work out in my favor because we'll hit the OnlyFans, where we risk channel points, but the code could be right or wrong. So not only are you like, you're trying to like risk your points, but like the code might be wrong and it might favor someone else. Dab, I think we need to do this, Dab. I think me and you need to do like a game show where we write out code and we're either like with chat or against chat, or like we're throwing in bugs or not throwing in bugs, and we risk our channel points. I think that'd be really fun. Let's keep that. Let's see if we can make that happen. All right. So what's going on here is we set up an arrow function, and there's two key things about the arrow function. A lot of folks are saying, what about parentheses? Well, you only really need parentheses if you know you're going to have multiple parameters. So you really need the parentheses when you're doing multiple parameters like X and I or something like that, right? Right? X and I, right? That's what we could do there, right? We could do X or I, right? We could do just empty parentheses. That's pretty common, right? That's pretty common, right? That's pretty common. But it was all a bamboozle, because you can also do like, I just do this underscore, right? I do this underscore just to say like, hey, I'm not passing in anything, right? I'm just passing in anything, right? Like I'm not passing in anything, so I put the underscore. For me, when I don't pass in anything, I just do an underscore. And that's for me and for the other developers I work with to know like, hey, like I'm not passing anything in, it's just empty. You can put any character there you wanted, but I just do the underscore to say like, hey, I'm not passing in anything. And this is a preference that you'll see come up again as we get further into JavaScript. And then just the arrow. And then there's something wrong with this code. This code ran, it gave us a result, but there's something wrong. While y'all were working on the parentheses over here, the real parentheses we were missing were here. There we go. So now I'll actually do random, because random's a method and I forgot it, right? So second try. So here now, if we want this random method to run, we actually need the parentheses, right? It won't run without the parentheses. And so since this always fails, right? Since it always fails, we would always get tails. But now that we have the parentheses, this should work. And now we should get heads or tails. Cool. Good on y'all that noticed that. That was a good catch. Beautiful. All right, and it still works. Let's run it a few times just to make sure we're good. Okay, great. So now we see that it's working. Beautiful. Ah, yes. OCC also brought up the implicit return. This is an implicit return. We don't need the return keyword. Like we don't need we have the return keyword. Whoop. We have the return keyword up here. We don't need it with an arrow function because there's something called an implicit return. It just does the return for you, right? It just does the, no, bright side, that's why. It just does the return for you. So what winds up happening is we're gonna call this heads or tails function. We check to see if it's less than 0.5, like the math.random gives us a number between 0 and 1. If it's less than 0.5, we implicitly return heads. If it's anything other than less than 0.5, we implicitly return tails. So that means down here, we're just returning heads or tails whenever we call it. Beautiful. Flipadelphia. Yeah, there's nothing here telling it to console log. It's down here where we're doing the console logging. Yeah. Because we call this function here, and what winds up happening is we wind up running this function each time the loop runs, and the heads or tails gets returned to where the function is called. So we get heads returned here, we get tails returned here over and over again. Cool.
I'm gonna have to go through these videos and see what's going on with them.
Alrighty. This is one of those ones to come back with, play around with it, get into the muck with it. You'll kind of see these ternaries pop up here and there. But if you're like, yo, I want to get better at this stuff here, there's one thing you can do that'll help you get better at like understanding and writing this kind of code. I didn't know how to write this code until I started doing something very specific. Yeah, that's Code Wars. Exactly. I saw this pattern. I first saw this pattern probably on Code Wars, right? I probably saw this on Code Wars. I incorporated, this is definitely my Anki. Like this whole line is in my Anki. I incorporated it into my Anki, and now I can recall it with pretty good precision pretty quickly. Yeah. Can I explain it in a pseudocode kind of way? Well, it's just that we have a function. We have a math.random which returns a 0 between 0 and 1. And so if whatever value comes here is less than 0.5, that winds up being a true statement. And whenever you have a true statement on the left-hand side of a ternary, you automatically grab the heads. It's the, sorry, you grab the left-hand side. So you would grab heads in this case. If for whatever reason this evaluates to false, you would grab what's on the right-hand side of the colon. It's the same thing as the conditional here. Don't let the ternary scare you. It's the exact same thing as having an if and an else. This is the if is true, and this is the else if it wasn't. That's all.
So he's saying that the heads would be true or the tails would be false.
What's an Anki? Anki is our space repetition tool that we use. It's kind of like flashcards with an algorithm behind it. If this is your first class with us, our very first class on YouTube, you can do exclamation point YouTube covers Anki, and why you'd want to use it.
That doesn't work in you.
Cool. All right, let's move on, folks.
I haven't set it for that, but
cool.
But you can join the 100 Devs Discord.
We talked about arrays.
It's annoying.
Talked about arrays a lot this last 2 classes. Chat, what are arrays?
Lists. They're a list.
I still don't get the underscore. Buckets. It's just a parameter. Instead of doing like X or I, because I'm not going to use it, I just do underscore. And that just lets me know, hey, this is like empty. I'm not going to use this at all. We could have put an X there. We could have put an I there. It could have been any other. We could have just put empty parentheses. But since I don't actually need a parameter there, I do the underscore. Yeah, arrays are toasters, exactly. And when we say a toaster, what we really mean is an element that can store other elements, right? A data structure that can hold other things. And so we like to think of Bill Gates' toaster, where it can hold a bunch of stuff, and every single time it needs to add something new, it gets a new slot and a new slot and a new slot. Some tricky things with arrays is that they start their counting or index with what?
0.
0, exactly. There are 2 different ways to create arrays. There's this constructor way, which we'll actually start using probably on Thursday or Tuesday, because we'll understand how to use constructors when it comes to objects. But the way we've been using it so far is using literal notation, using square brackets, where we literally create an array. When we create an array, we can put elements inside of the array. And we also have the ability to pull stuff out or put stuff into an array using its index.
I just thought about it. Not bad, y'all. I just remembered, because we can do this to go along. That was in that first hour. Oops. Toasters, literal notation, declaring arrays, and here we are. This is what he's talking about. Pardon, I forgot all about that.
0, 1, 2, or 3. If you're new, this is all stuff that we're doing in review. That's why we're going through it kind of quickly. We have 2 or 3 classes that you can find here on Twitch and then on YouTube that go through this in detail. Alrighty, so here's us grabbing stuff out of the array using its index. New array 0 gives us zebra. New array 1 gives us undefined. Why?
Because there's nothing there.
Hey, thank you for the hydration. Cheers to you. It's empty, exactly. There's nothing in this space, right? There's nothing in this space. So we get undefined. And then we grab the element and the second index, so 0, 1, 2, so we get true. And then here's us grabbing the element in the third index, 0, 1, 2, 3. We get 21, 21, 21, 21. Beautiful. We can also put stuff into an array using the index. So here I'm grabbing that undefined space and plopping the string of Bob into it. The spaces don't have to be empty for us to put stuff in. We could have just have easily changed this to 0 and overrid zebra to be Bob. The tricky thing is that we can actually overwrite whole arrays with arrays. And so you can overwrite a whole array by assigning an array to a different array. So here we have two arrays, cars and nums. We set cars equal to nums. And we ask for cars, we get 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
We can also get the length off of an array, and keep that in the back of your brain. We can get the length of an array because we're gonna get the objects later today, and we're gonna have to come back to this. So we can get the length of an array, and it'll tell us how many elements are in that array. And the tricky thing is that it counts starting at 1. So the indexes start at 0, but the length starts at 1. All right. We can also iterate through arrays where we're trying to pull each value out of an array. We saw a simple way of using a for loop, right? With a for loop, we can just kind of grab a number and count from 0 to some number. And we can use that number to pull values out of the array. So I start my increment of I at 0. And that's because the very first time I want this to run, right? The very first time I want this to run, ooh, that's such a good question. Muhammad asked a super good question. Why does length not have parentheses at the end? Oh, hold on. Just hold.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a beautiful question.
We're
gonna get there today. I will answer that question by the end of today. What a good question. All right, we start our count at 0. Chat's blowing it up. But yes, we're starting our count at 0, so we can use the index. Best colors 0 would give us green, then 1 would give us blue, 2 would give us yellow, 3 would give us black. We can also use methods that are built in with arrays to help us, right? To help us loop through our content. So for each is a goblin that runs, and each time it runs, it grabs the element, its index, and the actual array that it comes from and passes it in to this function. What kind of function is this? What do we call this? What kind of function is this?
An arrow function.
Yeah, it's an arrow function. So in previous time we would have used anonymous functions, just functions without a name, because we're passing a function into a function.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need all that declaration syntax or any of that stuff. We don't need the function keyword because we're passing it in as a what? We're passing it in as a what?
What is an argument?
As an argument, exactly. Yep, we're passing it as an argument. Beautiful. All right. We also saw some wonderful methods that came with arrays other than for each. We saw shift, pop, unshift. We saw all these wonderful methods. Let's run through them again. So here we have an array. Best rappers 2020 on that list. We have 6ix9ine, Polo G, and 6ix9ine. Pretty quickly, we shift off 6ix9ine. So what it does is it takes the beginning of the array and pulls it off. If you were to just do shift, you could grab that first value off and it would poof, evaporate into the ether. But we've actually stored it in a variable called removed. And so right now, 6ix9ine is pulled off and it's stored in the variable removed. However, if we ask for best rappers 2020, we can see that the array has changed. It no longer has that first 6ix9ine. It's just Polo G and 6ix9ine on the right hand side, right? So we shift. Shift takes the first thing off of an array and pulls it off. Next, we learned how to pop. So when we pop, we take the value that's at the end of the array and we take that off. So shift is off the front, pop is off the end. And so when we ask for best rappers 2020, what we wind up with is just Polo G at the moment, right? Just Polo G at the moment, because we've already shifted 6ix9ine off. We've shifted the other 6ix9ine off. Sorry, we've popped the other 6ix9ine off, and we just have Polo G left. Pop, lock, and drop it. Hold on.
He's doing the
Yeah, you don't know about that, huh? You don't know about that, huh? All right, I see you. You don't know. You don't know. Huh. Learned something new today.
Watch along.
All right.
Watch along.
So we're left with just Polo G because we shifted off and we popped off. Beautiful. Now we can actually do the almost kind of opposite, right? We can unshift, which is putting something on the front. So here I had just Polo G and I unshifted Dylon. So now Dylon is on the front of Best Rappers 2020. And we can do the same on the other side. We can push Dylon onto the back of the array. So now when we look, we have Dylon, Polo G, and Dylon. RK Mace, hey, thank you for the gifted subs. Thank you for being here. Beautiful. So now we have in the Best Rappers 2020, we have Dylon, Polo G, and Dylon because we shifted off and popped off 6ix9ine, and then we unshifted and pushed Dylon. Beautiful. Now the last method that we saw was map, and map is going to run once for each element in the array, but map does one very specific thing. What does map do? What makes map different? Like, what does it do? We have more viewers than Timberland. Timberland streaming. That's wild. Shout out to Timberland. It returns a brand new array. Exactly. Returns a brand new array. Wonderful. So if we are going to run once for each element in the array, does map do anything? What's the only thing that map returns? This is an implicit. This is right. This is an implicit return, right? So the only thing this map is doing is returning what?
It's going to return Dylon.
The only thing this does is it returns Dylon. So if we know that this map is going to run 3 times, what we're really doing is creating a new array for Best Rappers of all time that has Dylon in it. That's the first time it runs. Then it's going to grab Polo G, but it doesn't do anything with it. It just returns Dylon. And then it's going to run a 3rd time. It doesn't even matter that it was Dylon. It still just returns Dylon. So the only thing that a map does is spit the hot fire, right? And so here we wind up with Best Rappers of all time just being Dylon, Dylon, Dylon. And then for the last 2 things to add here, we unshift Dylon onto the front, and we push Dylon onto the back. And so when we console log the Best Rappers of all time, we have Dylon, 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 and Dylon.
It's like spit hot fire. That's a funny thing.
We have another review to do, but since we're at the top of the hour, let's take our break. Let's take our break. Let's put 5 minutes on the clock here, folks. 5 minutes on the clock.
Alrighty. Currently, I'm stopping at 153.36. I'll be back. I'll be back. There's some other things to take care of while weather permits and other stuff, and I'll be back. All right. Till later today. Peace.